Hi, Shane Sears. I'm going to be doing a series of tuning videos. I've been getting a lot of requests about my snares and everything. And also, I'm going to do a series of videos, and I'm going to break it down. There'll be one really long one. There'll be several that are cut up to maybe address the bottom head only, the snare wires only, the bearing edges, whatever. And then the top heads. I have to say, I'll do one that's a metal drum and one that's a wood drum, and I'll try to pick something that's fairly common and out there in use, as opposed to like this is a carbon fiber steel. However, I will say that a lot of the heads I'm going to use, I'll try to find something maybe a little more generic. This is an Emperor X, and it's pretty heavy, and I went with that on this drum because I wanted to use it for heavy things. And the bottom head, in this case, is a Remo Ambassador, which is pretty much the head I go to for everything, unless I'm going to be playing maybe something a little bit lighter volume and I want a quicker response. I'll use a Diplomat. I don't really go for the Emperors very much on the bottom, and you can see that's pretty firm. And so we'll talk about that. But the general basics of it are I tune the bottom head pretty firm. A lot of people use the term tabletop, but what does that mean? Because everybody's got different kinds of tables, and that doesn't mean that they're all super hard surfaces. But my thing is, if I push my thumb down, I can barely make an indentation. If the average person pushes their thumb down, they're not going to make an indentation. I can feel that. Snare wires for me, I usually leave a little bit on the looser side. Make sure they're centered. You see cord here. I typically use cord or gross grain ribbon, more so than any kind of plastic strips, although I do have some that are plastic. This particular drum has cast hoops. Just keep in mind that cast hoops will dry up your sound a little bit. The drum won't sustain as much, but your tuning will be a little bit more even because of the thickness of the cast of the hoop. If one should come undone, the one next to it might come undone too, but what happens is that it doesn't necessarily transfer through the rim as much. The sound doesn't, so the drum is a little bit drier. And then you got, if this hoop faces straight up, somewhat triple flange. Some have a single flange, double flange, triple flange, and you have what we stick saver type that turn inward or whatnot. All those can affect the sound too. In general, a triple flange hoop allows the drum to sing a little bit more, to resonate more, to cut a little bit more. The cast hoop is going to dry up the sound a little bit because it's so rigid and everything like that. However, what's unique is if you were to, if I was to stand up on the top of my house and drop a cast hoop on the concrete, chances are it's going to crack and break. If I drop a steel hoop, it's just going to bend. So the steel hoop, although thinner, is actually stronger in a lot of ways, depending on how it's played and whatnot. And then, of course, we'll talk about the tunings and the tension based on how loud you're going to play the drum and what sound you're looking for. I'm a snare collector. I have a lot of different snares and a lot of different sounds. And a lot of people don't have that ability to maybe walk into a recording studio and take a half dozen snares based on sounds you might want. Keep in mind that when I was playing a lot of live music, I had one snare. I didn't change based on the songs. I didn't trigger. So I just went with live mics and everything, but I had one snare and I had one off to the side. The snare off to the side was always higher pitched. I tried a 10 at one point, and I went to a 12, then a 13, and I settled on 13 because I could still get a lot of beef out of it, meaning I could get a lot of sound. But lately I've got a new 10 that I got from Patrick Wong, and I've been messing with that. So anyway, I always have those possibilities, and then I tune a drum based on what my gig's going to be. This particular drum is a carbon steel, weighs a ton, and I like to hit it really hard. So this is right now set up for rock. If I played this quietly, you'll be able to hear the snares. Now the snares are running this way right now, but if I go over here, if I play quiet the whole time, there's a point where you're losing that snare. It's because it's set up based on me hitting the drum hard. If I was going to play quieter, I would probably loosen those snares a little bit so they respond a little bit. So that's what I mean by your snare tightness based on the dynamic range of what you're going to play. So if you're in a metal band and you're slamming and your dynamics are very consistent with either backbeats or some kind of ghost notes, you're fine by setting your drum for what you need that for. But somebody who's maybe doing something that runs the full gamut of a ballad 1 minute, playing with brushes 1 minute, and whatever, and they keep the same snare, their snare tension is going to be a little bit different, even if they do play hard, because they are playing a wider range of dynamics. So we'll get into all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about when we talk about wood drums, the different type of woods and how they affect the sound, and the metal drums, the different types of metal, at least the most common types. So watch for that series, and feel free to ask any questions and whatnot. And I will do all of this by ear, and then maybe we'll check it at the end with like a tune bot or something like that. I have them. I rarely use them. I've done videos on them and stuff like that. 99% of the time, I'm just tuning by ear. So we'll do some videos on that and break it down, and hopefully that'll be enlightening to some of you who've been asking questions about it.